Hello and welcome back to Ready Player None, the only podcast left. I'm recording in April 2020 and coronavirus has given us a bit of a bad time at the minute. I've stayed at home and I've been putting on weight and I'm trying to grow a sad man beard, but I'm not the only one who's let my body go in self-isolation. In the last chapter we found out that Wade is now a pale, skinny, hairless cryptid of a man, owing to a breakdown thanks to being put in the friend zone. Well, he wasn't even friend zoned, she just doesn't want to see him at all anymore. Just a bad case of opposite sex. That's Jerry Halliwell for my straight listeners. What say we just bag it up and get on with chapter 20? So in the intervening 6 months since discovering the Quatrain, Wade has purchased his own private asteroid which now functions as his stronghold. He spends his evenings staring blankly at the Quatrain, which nobody's figured out in the past 6 months, even though I'm pretty sure we decided it was about cereal. His command center's embedded in the surface of the asteroid, and it's a 360-degree dome so he can see it all around him, and the rest of his base is embedded inside the asteroid. Its designation was S14A316, but I'd renamed it Falco after the Austrian rap star. I wasn't a huge Falco fan or anything, I just thought it sounded like a cool name. I can think of a huge Falco fan and he keeps commissioning all that macro artwork. We've all seen it, I know you don't want to admit it. Falco had only a few square kilometres of surface area, but it'd still cost me a pretty penny. That's the same guy talking about his commission. As the asteroid is his own property, it means he can build anything he wants there. It was the one place in the entire simulation where I was truly safe. So he's telling us that it's election season, both for the Oasis and the US government. He's saying he doesn't really vote in the US government elections, and this part here hits a little bit too close to home for me. The once great country into which I'd been born now resembled its former self in name only. It didn't matter who was in charge, those people were rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic and everyone knew it. Skip a bit, skip a bit. The only people who could get elected were movie stars, reality TV personalities, or radical televangelists. 2011 was such an innocent time. Now he does vote in the Oasis elections because those actually matter to him and are relevant. It was also time to elect the president and VP of the Oasis User Council, but that was a no-brainer. Like most Gunters, I voted to re-elect Cory Doctorow and Will Wheaton again. Jesus. Can you imagine Vice President Will Wheaton? That's a bigger threat to the Oasis's privacy than IOI is. He's gonna friggin' name search himself and respond to any criticism you make of him. And if that happens to this episode, you're only proving my point, Will! This next part also lets you know that this book was written 10 years ago. Wade has set up his own streaming channel called Parzival TV, broadcasting obscure eclectic crap 24/7, 365. So earlier that year, GSS has only just implemented what they're calling the Personal Oasis VidFeed channel. Anyone who subscribes to it can run their own streaming television network. That's just right now. They only just added that in whatever far future space year this is. 2046 is it by now? They've only just added the functionality that I can think of 6 different websites that do the same. Most users chose to run a voyeur channel, which is like being the star of your own 24-hour reality show. It's all about automated cameras following your avatar around, and they're charging people for the privilege of watching it sometimes as well. As we've established last chapter, this is the part of the book where the floodgates open and Ernest Cline is just being horny on main. So he's telling us about how pornographers are using it as well as people who broadcast videos themselves or their kids or their dogs. Non-stop foot fetish videos broadcast out of Eastern Europe. Amateur porn featuring deviant soccer moms in Minnesota. Now everyone could be on TV, every second of every day, whether or not anyone was watching. I wonder if this episode's got 20 views yet. Parzival TV isn't one of these channels. It's just a mix of random 80s shows, cartoons, movies, whatever, that he airs non-stop, and because he's a big shot gunter, millions of people watch it. This allowed me to sell commercial time to my various sponsors. Why? You're not producing any of the content. You're essentially just a pirate. You're reusing other people's content. Oh. That sentence was going to end, you're reusing other people's content and getting paid to do so. And for a minute I was thinking that's a reprehensible thing to do. But then I remembered what book I'm reading. Ernest Cline is a millionaire because he managed to repurpose other people's content into this bare-bones narrative. And somehow you all fell for it. Most of Wade's viewers are tuning in to see if he can drop a hint about the Jade Key or the Quatrain. They're almost certainly not watching his 2-day-long Kaiju marathon. Not really sure what Kaiju is, but I'm sure there's something to do with VR troopers involved there. I had a weakness for vintage kaiju and tokusatsu. Shows like Spectre-Man, The Space Giants, and Spider-Man! Now, if you're not aware, Kaiju is a genre of giant monster films like Godzilla, and a tokusatsu is like a table with a blanket under it and a heat source underneath, and you can go underneath and feel all warm and cuddly. He changes his broadcast lineup, and I'm only mentioning that because I like this sentence: Gamera, my favourite giant flying turtle. Also, he's always got one of his many, many screens in his supervillain hideout tuned to Artemivision. She's got episodes of Square Pegs, Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, Isis, Wonder Woman. She's getting tons of views, killer ratings. She's launched her own successful clothing line for full-figured female avatars under the label Artemis. That's Miss as in M-I-S-S, Artemis. She was doing really well for herself. Yeah, leave her alone. She's doing great without you in her life. Just turn the screen off. You'll be much happier, trust me. She's been blocking all of his emails, phone calls, and chat requests. She's even stopped making posts to her blog. This man-child has made such an impact on her life that it's ruined her favourite hobby. I tried everything I could think of to reach her. I'm not liking where this is going. I sent her avatar flowers. I made multiple trips to her avatar's stronghold, an armoured place on Benatar, the small moon she owned. I dropped mixtapes and notes on her palace from the air, like lovesick bums. Once, in a supreme act of desperation, I stood outside her palace gates for 2 hours with a boombox over my head, blasting In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel at full volume. Leave her alone! He hasn't actually spoken to her in 8 weeks. But I hadn't spent that time moping around and feeling sorry for myself. Well, not all of it, anyway. Press X to doubt. Now, he spent a lot of his time doing quests in all different sectors, gaining more weaponry and vehicles and so on, because he wasn't overpowered before. Also, sidebar, he says he's maxed out his power level. Maxed, M-A-X-X-E-D. 2 X's? What's that all about? We also find that he's tried and failed to reconnect with H. They'd grown apart, and because they're both Gunters, neither of them wants to reveal to the other if they've got some secret information or anything. They've been untrustworthy and confrontational, and the last time they spoke about a month ago was a shouting match, in which an incensed Wade told H that he'd never even have found the copper key if it wasn't for him, and they're both too stubborn and prideful to reconcile. H is currently broadcasting a WWF match on his own channel. I didn't even bother checking Daito and Shoto's channel, the Daisho, because I knew they'd be showing some old samurai movie. That's all those guys ever aired. Those wacky Japanese. Obsessed with samurais 100% of the time. He's tried to mend fences with Daito and Shoto in the intervening time since their really disastrous first meeting. He'd extended this olive branch in the form of a quest invite. It was a quest that was coded years after Halliday had died, so it's nothing to do with the egg hunt. And it was coded by GSS's Hokkaido division, so it's completely in Japanese. So the idea is that it's a team-building exercise and they can all reap the benefits later. Now, this paragraph, I didn't initially notice. The quest, this hidden high-level quest, is called Shodai Urotoraman? I did not initially dissect those phonemes in that order. Of course, Urotoraman is in fact Ultraman, that old TV series. The quest is a recreation of all 39 episodes of the original Ultraman. I'm so sick of recreations of things. I'm getting tired of having to stand up and clap every time I recognise a reference. I'm trying to think, has there been any quest line in this book that's actually been something original? I'm genuinely having trouble thinking whether there has or not. So we've got a 10-line paragraph summarising the original Ultraman TV show, which Ernest Cline wants you to know that he's heard of. And then there's a following 8-line paragraph explanation about how that translates into a video game, which I can sum up for you now as, you play as the characters. You play as the characters, and playing as a team is easier than playing alone. There, saved you a paragraph. It took him an entire week of 16-hour days to finally complete this quest, and as well as a ton of experience points and several thousand credits, the real prize is what I can only assume is a really stupid Chekhov's gun. Hayata's Beta Capsule, a small metal cylinder which allows the avatar who possessed it to transform into Ultraman once a day for up to 3 minutes. That's probably going to be part of the final battle, I'm sure. The 3 Gunters squabble over who deserves the prize. Shoto wants Wade to have it, Daito says they should auction it off. Wade eventually says that the 2 Japanese Gunters should keep it, because Urotoraman is Japan's greatest superhero. His powers belong in Japanese hands. They were both surprised and humbled by my generosity, especially Daito. "Thank you, Parzival-san," he said, bowing low. "You are a man of honor." Do I even need to say that these Japanese people are obsessed with honor at this point? Good for him for mending one of his intrapersonal relationships. Back in the present, a chime sounded in my ears and I checked the time. It was almost 8 o'clock. Time to make the donuts. Okay, whatever. Don't know what that has to do with anything. A long time ago, I asked, how is it that the world's foremost gunter is a lucrative position to have? And in this portion of the chapter, we find out that it isn't. Wade's money's dried up. Between the rent, electricity, food and water of his real-world self, he's also got more exotic expenses for his avatar. Spacecraft repairs, teleportation fees, power cells, ammunition. There's another one of those staccato lists again. His product endorsement money's dried up. He does earn money from commercials between broadcasting other people's content over the internet, and he also auctions off any unwanted or duplicate gear he gets by doing quests. Given the fact you just told us that all the Sixers are buying up the exotic weaponry in the auctions, that's maybe not the best idea. So Wade has had to get a proper job. Under his fake name of Bryce Lynch, he'd also given himself a bunch of computer qualifications and college degrees. And despite all this completely fabricated higher education, the best job he can get is as a Tier 1 technical support representative at a company called Helpful Help Desk Incorporated. So he works 40 hours a week as Oasis technical support. He's got a separate Oasis account just for his work. He's got an individual avatar for this job as well. And he sits in a virtual cubicle taking real tech support calls. This avatar appeared inside a huge virtual call center, inside a virtual cubicle, sitting at a virtual desk, in front of a virtual computer, wearing a virtual phone headset. I thought of this place as my own private virtual hell. And he goes on about angry, befuddled customers who keep ringing him. I'm just going to read this bit. There was no downtime between calls because there were always several hundred morons in the call queue, all of them willing to wait on hold for hours to have a tech rep hold their hand and fix their problem. Why bother looking up the solution online? Why try to figure the problem out on your own when you could have someone else do your thinking for you? Turns out he's bored and he hates his tech support job, and he's hacked his visor so he can play music while he works. Do you think Ernest Cline ever worked in a call center? Or tech support? Because that's what I'm getting from this paragraph right here. This is him raging against the day job he quit when he got this fabulous publishing deal with Random House. Okay, I just looked that up and it turns out that yes, Ernest Cline did have a long line of jobs in technical support. But even more exciting is that I found lyrics for a slam poem he wrote, Ernest Cline Tech Support. And this thing is hilarious. Check the description below for a link in which I read out the whole thing dramatically. Back to the matter at hand. So after a 10-hour shift at his terrible tech support job, Wade is finally allowed to look at his personal emails. I had thousands of new email messages waiting, and I could tell just by their subject lines what had happened while I'd been at work. Artemis had found the Jade Key. Bam, bam, bam! End chapter 20. Artemis, you are so much better off without him. So what have we learned this chapter? Well, we've learned that Ernest Cline is a weeaboo. He also believes that repurposing other people's content is a good way to get money for yourself. And we've learned that Will Burton is still milking his Star Trek career 50 years later. And we also found out that Wade thinks he deserves so much more than what he's getting just for faking some qualifications and knowing more 80s TV shows than you do. If you want more slam poetry from someone who spent too much time in customer service, you can construct some from my tweets at The Last Gherkin, or follow the show on Twitter at @RPN_pod. Watch along with subtitles on YouTube at The Last Gherkin, or get an MP3 download at thelastgherkin.podbean.com. In the comments below, leave me your favourite giant flying turtle, or tell me that I'm pronouncing beta incorrectly. I'll love that. Oop! 8 o'clock. Time to make the donuts. What do the donuts have to do with anything? That's a bigger threat to the Oasis's privacy than GSS is, and it was coded by GSS's Hokkaido division. Oh, bother, I've just said GSS earlier on instead of IOI. That's a bigger threat to the Oasis's privacy than IOI is. There, saved you 8 paragraphs. Oh, excuse me. Don't you hate reaching into your jeans pocket for a tissue?